Strait of Hormuz, 52 kilometers northeast of Kasab, 6:14 in the morning. 160 U.S. Army Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment were packed into 12 fast assault craft, escorting 4 U.S. Army watercraft hauling a sealed cargo module across the shipping lane. On the Iranian side, Sials Kengpadam, Sestinitin and 640 Iranian forces defended a drone control bunker and a launch pier that fed swarms into the strait. If the convoy stopped here, the cargo would be captured and the route would be shut down. The bunker sat on the edge of Keshem Island, tied to 22 drone launch racks and 6 truck antennas. Iranian forces had layered defenses around it. They had 4 Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft guns, 18 DSHK heavy machine guns, and 26 PKM machine gun positions. They also had 48 RPG-7 teams on rooftops and seawalls. Iranian forces believed the narrow waterway gave them control. They expected any raid to get pinned down or sunk. The U.S. Army plan was simple and fast. Alpha Element, 44 U.S. Army Rangers, would hit the pier and cut off launches. Bravo Element, 40 U.S. Army Rangers, would seize the seawall gun line. Charlie Element, 48 U.S. Army Rangers, would breach into the drone control bunker and wipe the link. Delta Element, 28 U.S. Army Rangers, would provide overwatch, jamming, and casualty collection from 2 stern craft. At 6:14, the assault began on the water. Alpha Element surged forward in 4 boats. M240B machine guns opened in short bursts. Bravo Element split wide and drove for the seawall. Charlie Element stayed behind the smoke screen. Delta Element raised antennas and started jamming. At 6:16, Iranian forces reacted late and loud. Spotters shouted from rooftops. PKM machine guns snapped across the waves. An RPG-7 team fired and missed by 3 meters. U.S. Army Rangers and Alpha Element answered with Mk-18 CQB-R fire. 2 Iranian forces on the pier dropped. The first launch rack was still spinning up drones. If you're into real-time military breakdowns like this, hit the like button and drop a comment below. Do you think this mission would have survived if those drones launched earlier? And make sure to subscribe for more detailed mission breakdowns like this. 2 minutes into the operation, 24 Iranian drones lifted at once. They came low and fast. The lead U.S. Army boat swung its M2 Browning up. The gunner fired 46 rounds. The first drone burst apart. A second drone hit the water and skipped. It exploded 9 meters off the bow. At 6:18, the swarm thickened over the convoy. Delta Element tracked targets and called out angles. A U.S. Navy escort ship, 3,200 meters south, engaged too. Its phalanx CIWS ripped a line through the air. ARIM-116 ERAM launched and took 1 drone clean. U.S. Army Rangers kept firing from every mount. In 6 minutes, 17 Iranian drones were shot down. The convoy never stopped moving. At 6:20, Iranian forces switched to direct fire. 4 Zu-23-2 guns opened from the seawall. Tracer rounds walked toward the watercraft. Bravo Element hit the seawall hard. U.S. Army Rangers jumped into knee-deep water and climbed the rocks. 2 Rangers fired M4A1 SOPMOD-2 rifles in controlled pairs. Another Ranger fed a Mk-48 Mod 0 and cut down a PKM crew. The nearest Zu-23-2 kept firing. At 6:22, Bravo Element solved it fast. A Ranger shouldered an AT-4. He fired from 74 meters. The rocket hit the Zu-23-2 shield. The gun flipped and went silent. Iranian forces tried to shift the second Zu-23-2. A U.S. Army Ranger on the flank launched a Carl Gustav M3 round. The blast tore the mount apart. The seawall line started to break. At 6:24, Alpha Element reached the pier. Iranian forces were loading drones onto rails. U.S. Army Rangers fired Mk-18 CQB-R rifles at close range. 1 Ranger tossed a block of C4 under the first rack. Another Ranger ran det cord along 6 launch rails. The charges detonated in a single chain. Metal frames folded and burned. 8 drones fell into the water before they could launch. By the 10-minute mark, Charlie element moved in. 2 boats slammed into the pier edge. U.S. Army Rangers sprinted up a concrete ramp. Iranian forces fired AK-74 rifles from a doorway. Charlie element returned fire and pushed to the wall. The bunker door was steel and barred. A breacher placed a shaped charge on the locking bar and detonated it. The bar snapped. The door swung inward. Charlie element flowed inside. At 6:26, the fight turned into rooms and corridors. The bunker had 4 hallways and 12 side rooms. Iranian forces fired from behind desks and equipment racks. U.S. Army Rangers used M4A1 SOPMOD-2 rifles at short range. A Ranger with an M249 SAW fired 63 rounds down a hallway. The fire stopped an Iranian counter-push. Charlie element cleared the left corridor in 2 minutes. They pushed deeper toward the control room. At 6:28, Iranian forces tried to trap them. A side door opened behind Charlie element. 6 Iranian forces rushed with AK-74 rifles. Delta element had eyes through a rear hatch camera. Delta element warned Charlie element in time. 2 U.S. Army Rangers pivoted and fired. The rush ended in 8 seconds. Charlie element kept moving. At 6:30, the strategic picture tightened. Iranian forces had lost 14 launch racks, but 8 racks were still active inland. A new wave of 12 drones rose from behind the bunker. 2 AH-64E Apaches. 9 kilometers west joined the fight. They fired 4 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. 2 missiles hit antenna trucks. 1 hit a fuel trailer. The last missile struck a drone rack cluster. Iranian forces lost their backup uplink. At 6:32, Bravo element held the seawall, but took hits. Iranian forces fired 3 RPG-7 rounds from a side street. 1 rocket struck a boat engine and disabled it. Bravo element dragged 2 wounded U.S. Army Rangers behind the wall. Delta element moved in with a spare outboard motor. U.S. Army Rangers lifted the damaged craft, swapped the motor, and pushed it back into position in 4 minutes. At 6:34, Iranian forces attempted a counterattack from the North Road. A line of 38 Iranian forces advanced with PKM machine guns. Alpha element shifted to meet them. A Ranger set up an M240B on a pier corner. He fired 3 bursts, 9 rounds each. The first PKM team dropped. A second team tried to flank. Alpha element hit them with MK48 Mod 0 fire and stopped the push cold. At 6:36, Charlie element reached the control room. The room had 14 consoles and 2 large screens. 4 Iranian forces tried to wipe drives. U.S. Army Rangers shot the screens and the hands-on keyboards. A Ranger dumped thermite onto the server rack. The metal sizzled and collapsed. Another Ranger pulled the main power breaker and ripped cables free. The drone link died across the island in seconds. At 6:40, Iranian forces outside understood too late. Drone motors still in the air began to wander. 6 drones fell into the sea without control. Iranian forces on rooftops kept firing AK-74 rifles, but their aim broke down. While U.S. Army Rangers in Bravo element used MK-11 Mod 0 sniper rifles to remove 6 rooftop shooters at 420 meters, the seawall became quiet. At 6:48, the objective was secured. U.S. Army Rangers controlled the pier, the seawall, and the bunker interior. Alpha element seized 26 intact drone warheads and 18 guidance kits. Charlie element captured 4 encrypted radios and 2 control laptops. Delta element marked 6 ammo stacks and destroyed them with C4. The last ZU-23-2 fired 11 rounds, then took an AT-4 hit and burned out. At 6:52, extraction began under pressure. Iranian forces' reinforcements were moving from the east. Drone launches had stopped, but small arms fire continued. U.S. Army Rangers loaded the captured gear into 2 boats. Bravo element covered the pier with M240B fire. Delta element pulled 3 wounded U.S. Army Rangers onto the medical craft. The convoy turned south and regained speed. At 7:06, the U.S. Army convoy cleared the kill zone. Iranian forces' reinforcements arrived at the pier 6 minutes later and found only wrecked racks and a dead control bunker. The mission inside the target area lasted 52 minutes from first contact to withdrawal. U.S. Army losses were 3 killed and 12 wounded. Iranian forces losses were 146 killed, 184 wounded, and 82 captured. U.S. Army Rangers destroyed 22 drone launch racks valued at $44 million, 6 antenna trucks valued at $18 million, and the control bunker equipment valued at $27 million, for a total of $89 million. Iran believed the drone bunker and the narrow strait made the convoy untouchable. What actually happened was a fast, timed strike that killed the link and broke the swarm. Sometimes the strongest defense is not enough when U.S. Army Rangers decide it needs to be taken.